Ronn says it's time to sing, so I guess we will. Should I sing a solo, huh? You have 4 minutes more? Oh, but he's the boss. How about if we begin with 357 in your booklet? O Master, let me walk with thee in lowly paths of service free. Tell me thy secret, help me bear the strain of toil and the fret of care. So as we volunteer for MDS, it gets tiresome sometimes. And we become weary. But if we take a few minutes off and sing a little bit, why, we feel a lot better. So I read somewhere just recently, if all else fails, sing. So 357. O Master, let me walk with thee in lowly paths of service free. Tell me thy secret, help me bear the strain of toil, the fret of care. Help me the slow of heart to move by some clear winning word of love. Teach me the wayward feet to stay and guide them in the homeward way. Teach me thy patience still with thee, in closer, clearer company, in work that keeps faith sweet and strong, in trust that triumphs over wrong, in hope that sends a shining ray far down the future's broadening way, in peace that only thou canst give. With thee, O Master, let me live. How about one in the next page right beside it? Will you let me be your servant? Let me be as Christ to you. Pray that I may have the grace to let you be my servant true. We are pilgrims on a journey. We are travelers on the road. We are here to help each other walk the mile and bear the load. I will hold the Christ-like for you in your invite for your fear. I will hold my hand out to you, Speak the peace I long to hear. I will weep when you are weeping, and you laugh, I'll laugh with you. I will share your joy and sorrow till we've seen this journey through. When we sing to God in heaven, we shall find such harmony. Born of all we've known together, of Christ's love and agony.
Excuse me, could I ask you a question?
Sure.
What's a Lititz?
A dough ball, the kind you serve with gravy.
No, it's a songbird, right? The tufted Lititz.
A Lititz? Yes, that's an asteroid discovered in the 1940s.
It's an ice skating move, remember? They talked about it on the Olympics, a triple Lititz.
Lititz isn't a what, it's a where.
And it's home to Mennonite Disaster Service.
There's a lot going on inside.
Come on in and meet the team.
This is Lindell. She's Director of First Impressions, and she's the first line of keeping us organized. And she makes amazing desserts. And this is where we work. Let's meet the rest of the staff. This is Brad Fair, Development Manager. He's the one who raises money and tells donors our story. And Ginny keeps in contact with all our donors. Glenn Hillard is the Administration and Finance Manager. Heidi Charles is our accountant. Together, they count the money and keep those project office managers happy. Jerry Grosh is the Field Operations Manager. He makes sure all the projects have accommodations, meaningful work, money, and volunteers. But we all know Gabby Baumberger is the one who really gets things done.
Back to work, Jerry.
Oh, and here's Becky Gocknauer and the volunteer management team. Deanna, Josh, Alicia, Carla, Kelsey, Phil, and Nancy, matching people with projects, training them, and sending them off.
And here's Darin Yoder.
He's in charge of the fleet, vehicles, equipment, logistics. Next to the office, we have the warehouse. Seems to be a little bit of everything in here. Rakes and shovels, generators, ice chests, and whatever this is. In the communications office, you'll find Crystal. She makes sure we share the news about MDS on social media and keeps our website up to date. I'm Jess, and I make sure we're all telling the story of MDS in ways that reach everyone. Ron Gunther, Director of Operations, helps manage our day-to-day work and keeps us all focused. Brian Pipkin makes sure MDS leaders stay organized, whether they're on the road or here at home. But the driving force behind MDS is our Executive Director, Kevin King.
Thank you very much, Brian. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Lititz. I want to say thank you to all of our remote staff out there in the field, all of us here to helping disaster survivors get back home. We want to be there for you in bringing the tools, the resources, what you need to make it possible to get disaster survivors back home. Let us know if there's anything we can do for you.
That was a last-minute surprise here, and just want to thank Jess Huxman and Paul Hunt here for their work on that. And also, where's Roger? Roger Sharp. Oh, don't tell me he missed that. he's the one that initiated this. He's the one that's always asking, what's a Lititz? So thank you, Roger, here for prompting that creative effort here. Okay, well, we're Saturday afternoon here, and so Region 2 is the only region that we have not heard from yet, and so we're going to take some time to hear now. You'll see in your programs that Hubert Yates with Mississippi VOAD was our scheduled speaker. Unfortunately, Hubert has not been able to be here this week. He came down with a flu earlier in the week, and so we're missing his presence here with us. But I do want to introduce Morris Miller, Region 2 Board Vice Chair, and also Darin Bontrager, our Regional Operations Coordinator. Invite them to come forward at this point.
I asked Darin to come up to give me support here. And were they going to show the video?
Yeah.
And show me how to operate the electronic equipment?
Yeah.
Wonderful. And I'm disappointed that Hubert wasn't able to make it. I know him personally, and he would have been an excellent speaker, and hopefully in the future we can have him, but unfortunately, and you know how MDS is, you know what MDS stands for, right, Darin?
Yeah, what would that be?
It would be make do somehow.
Yeah,
and
okay.
so that's what we're doing, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, I think the first part is something that Hubert had put together, and Hubert is the chairman for Mississippi VOAD, Volunteer Organizations Active in Disaster, and so I think, am I correct, the first part is what he's put together?
Yes, and this is a video from our response in Louisville, Mississippi, which was a number of years ago. But yeah, we'll go ahead and play this video now.
I'm Hubert Yates. I'm volunteer coordinator for Winston County. We're in Winston County, Mississippi, just outside of Louisville, Mississippi, where we've experienced a EF4 tornado of 34.3 miles in length, approximately 3/4 to a mile wide in width the entire distance. We have over 300 homes totally destroyed, 126 homes with minor damage, and 116 with major damage.
I'm Larry Miller, and I'm a shoe-in available director. With me are crew leaders that come and go from week to week, equipment specialists. My job is not difficult because I have wonderful people around me. MDS is a gladioscope of lots of talents.
My name is Bruce Smith, and I'm field coordinator for equipment and setting up the crew leaders and getting them out on the job and getting it cleaned up.
Having been in the fire and the emergency management area for about 28 years, I have learned that when the Mennonites are showing up on the scene, number one, it means you had a disaster, and number two, it means work's going to get done. I always enjoy their spirit, I enjoy their love for their fellow man, and always their willingness to try to accomplish any and every task and do it in a way that not only is professional, but honors God with it.
Well, the first week, the whole community was in chaos. Nobody knew about referrals or where do you centralize things. By the second week, we had two teams, an Indiana team and another Pennsylvania team. So we're finishing the third week now of 22 volunteers. We're anticipating about 24 on the fourth week. Yeah, life's never been the same. We've been inundated Mennonites who are ambitious, friends of Mennonites who are tagging along, all under the banner of let's do an MDS thing and make a difference in people's lives. The job cards are overwhelmingly demolish my house, remove the debris to the road according to the standards of the FEMA contractor. Do not hesitate to do everything you can to make this place habitable so that a FEMA trailer could be brought in or that the homeowner could again someday live there. Of the 300 and some homes that were destroyed in Winston County, those families had to go somewhere. They're living with relatives. You know, we think that we could get through with this soon, and we can, but I see another couple of weeks of intensive cleanup.
It's tough because we are demoing people's homes. Not very many things are saved, but it's part of the rebuilding process.
For every official referral we get, we still get 3 of them that call and say, I heard my neighbor say, or someone at church told me the Mennonites or just, I saw your sign and somebody told me to call you.
I got a little brochure and I had called them and asked them could they clean the spot off. My name is Olive May Hawthorne, and this was my house. But it's gone now.
Crews have been excellent. Lord provides everything we need at the time we need it.
The work that has been done, the efforts that have been put forth, we as a community would be still suffering greatly if we did not have the volunteer support and the faith-based groups lead those particular efforts. And I just want to say again, thank you to the Mennonite Disaster Service for the work that they've done for us.
That video was taken several years ago with the tornado in Louisville, and these pictures here, I believe, are more recent in Mississippi, but you can go on through them. So there's work going on in Columbus, Mississippi right now, and Larry Miller was in the previous video, and I don't know what we'd do without him. He's been coordinating groups for years in Mississippi and doing a great job with it. But in Columbus, they're active right now in Columbus. They've in their 6th week that they've done, and they've done 18 houses have been repaired, 12 new roofs, and 1 rebuild that is at the sheetrock stage right now. And they've been using Alabama and Florida's work trailers and Ohio's work trailers, and they appreciate that very much, being able to use them. And that picture there is a rebuild in Columbus. Okay, were there any? I didn't know. Okay, in DeSoto County, Mississippi, if you see this picture here, and this is a picture that this is a place that had a tornado in the middle of January, just a month ago, or less than 3 weeks ago. And our daughter lives in northwest Mississippi in this county. And on our way up here, we stopped through there and took these pictures. And I'm not sure, a long-term recovery team had been started, and I don't know if or when MDS will be involved in this. But anyway, there's a few pictures from that damage there. But we were just in a construction session, and I don't think that house, can you go back at all or not? Okay. If you notice that house there, the front part of the roof is setting on the ground right in front of the house. And it didn't have hurricane straps on it, apparently. It wasn't built to MDS standards. And that's just another picture of the damage. And you know what? Tornado pictures, it doesn't matter where they're taken, they all look the same, don't they?
Yeah, that's deep.
All right. I'll turn it over to Darin.
Well, one of my favorite aspects of coming to these annual meetings has to be hearing the stories of homeowners and volunteers. And so I'm going to share a couple of stories of our responses here in Region 2. I will note that we have responded in flooding in both eastern and western Ohio and the Mississippi Delta as well, which all included many hours of sweat and lots of muck. But I want to focus on 3 other stories. It was Memorial Day weekend in Dayton, Ohio, and the tornado sirens began to go off in the evening. Not too long afterwards, 15 tornadoes touched down in the greater metropolitan area of Dayton, Ohio. Lawrence Matthews, our Western Ohio unit chair, woke up in the morning to the news report, looked up the local CCP, and reached out via email to ask if everyone from the congregation was okay and to see and kind of what things they were hearing. It's the kind of email where you're not sure exactly if you want a response or not, knowing that, man, this might involve a lot of work. Not 10 minutes later, the pastor wrote back and said that there's one person that lives in the neighborhood that was hit quite badly. And his house was okay, but the rest of the neighborhood was not so fortunate. Pastor said that's the neighborhood for MDS to start. The next day, Lawrence, Wayne Yoder, and I met with the pastor and Kevin, who lived there, not exactly sure what we would find. It became clear very quickly that Kevin wanted to help his neighbors and had very good relationships with them, going door to door, inviting MDS to help in that effort. I saw Jesus in a man that was clearly shook up by the storm, but wanted to help others before helping himself. The phone calls started, the wheels were turning, and the Western Ohio unit had volunteers out the next weekend. This house in particular was of a man that wanted us to clean up his yard, but in that process, he kept making the comment that, man, his fence was just totally gone, accepted it as a loss, and just thought nothing could be done. So we put a few volunteers on his house to clean up the trees, and we were there 2 weekends, and the second weekend we had around 30 to 50 volunteers that week, or that day on a Saturday, and so we spread those volunteers out on other jobs. This was also the same day where it was so hot that around 2:30 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, the chainsaw stopped working because the gas was evaporating before it could combust in the engine, so we had to quit running chainsaws. But before everyone went home, Lawrence kept looking over at that fence and thought, man, well, with 30 to 40 people, surely we can do something about that fence. So he gathered them up, and they all walked over, and in true Amish barn raising style, they all lined up and were able to straighten out the fence. And not only were they able to straighten out the fence, they were able to straighten out a metal pole that was part of this fence system as well. And so the running joke was, well, how many Mennonites does it take to straighten out a metal pole? So it was just really a matter of minutes that fence line was straight as it could be, and even the homeowner was just really tickled pink. Jesus is among us when we work together. And here's another photo of another house in that same community. If we shift down to Marianna, Florida, where 155-mile-an-hour winds have a way of putting things where they aren't exactly supposed to go. During the construction training, one of the theoretical questions that we came across was what happens when people don't want to build to design standards for 145-mile-an-hour winds when you're 100 miles or 60 miles from the coastline. Well, Marianna is about 60 miles from the coast, and at the coast they were experiencing 155 miles an hour. In Marianna, the winds were sustained at 135 with gusts above that. So whether it was a pecan tree through your roof, or a pine tree in your living room, or an entire tree balancing not exactly where you left it the day before, wind can have a pretty powerful effect. In most of MDS's early response efforts, they generally wrap up in 1 to 3 months, but in Marianna, we were cutting up trees for 5 months. We are now in the rebuilding phase, and here's one of the first houses that we're building in Calhoun County. This is one of 4 new houses we are working on this winter. And I've seen Jesus in our leadership volunteers that are walking alongside the long-term recovery group as they navigate the Florida Building Code and planting seeds of hope through the progress that is coming slowly but surely. In Chipley, Florida, we worked on a man's house, and he was fairly grumpy, reserved, and had a broken foot when we first met him. I saw a photo of a young man on the wall and asked him if that was his son, trying to break the ice and make a little small talk. He shared that yes, that indeed was his son, but had committed suicide shortly before Hurricane Michael. Man, did I want to eat my words when that happened. A few weeks later, though, I heard that through the interactions with the volunteer, they sat and talked with him, and over time he began to share his story, smile, and joke around with the RV volunteers. One also remarkable change was he was a hoarder as well, so there was lots of trash throughout the house. But after a few weeks, he began cleaning out his house on his own. So it was really just an incredible transformation that our volunteers were focused on building a relationship. And so I saw Jesus through that. If we shift now to Panama City, where we are partnering with Storm Aid from Pennsylvania. At this particular house, there was an older woman that was living in a RV kind of back and to the right behind the house. Her daughter was living in the utility shed on the left side of the property. You can see that in the back side. And she just made the exclamation that, "I love to sit and watch them work. They're so fast and they're so young." With 18 new builds planned, 9 actively in the pipeline, and 2 to be finished in the next couple of weeks, 14 demolitions and 20 repairs completed, Jesus is alive and well in Panama City. Now, I don't know what we will see in 2020, whether it will be clear or blurry, but I know that I have less fear going into the new year, knowing that Jesus is indeed among us. And as we go, let us continue to be instruments of peace. Thank you.
We see Jesus when those who have experienced disaster are reaching out to others who are hurting. One of the really unique things that we've been able to experience in our 70 years of history has been being able to be involved with new organizations that have formed in this disaster work. And one of those organizations or programs that we've had a special relationship with has been the Disaster Management Program at Heston College. And so I'd like to invite Becky and Cleo to come up and share a little bit about the Disaster Management Program.
Good afternoon, and this is not Cleo, this is Cleo. I bring greetings from Heston College and the Disaster Management Program. I'm Cleo Kopp, the program director. I've been there 5 years now. The Disaster Management Program is a unique partnership between Heston College and Mennonite Disaster Service. This partnership was forged almost 15 years ago. Since that time, since 2005, there have been just over 80 graduates from our program. I share with us the disaster management mission statement. The disaster management program exists to develop leadership abilities in managing disaster response, emphasizing Christ-like service to socially vulnerable population groups, being the hands and the feet of Jesus, seeing Jesus among us in the socially vulnerable population groups lies at the heart of the disaster management program. Also, developing leadership abilities in persons like Alicia Hurst, Darin Bontrager, current staff of Mennonite Disaster Service, Brett Troyer and David Hostetler, former staff of Mennonite Disaster Service. Each of these persons graduated from Heston College through the disaster management program, and we are thankful for these young persons sharing their gifts and talents now with our organization, MDS. Currently, we have 4 first-year students, 2 from Oregon, 1 from Indiana, and 1 from Kansas. Our second-year students are 1 from Iowa, and he was unable to come this weekend because he got sick right before we were ready to leave. And Jonathan Voth, who is here with us, and you'll be hearing from him just in a moment. One of my goals for this next year is to connect each of these students more closely with their unit and their regions, seeing that you can be a big influence on these young adults as you adopt them into your MDS family. I invite us to look for ways that we can encourage young adults to be connected with Mennonite Disaster Service. Well, all weekend you've been seeing this smiling guy up here, and now you get to hear from him. So I'm going to invite Jonathan Voth to come up and share part of his story and his journey. Jonathan, welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone. I was kind of coaxed into this. Levi is supposed to be up here, but I'm going to take his place today. So, I started off with Service Adventure in Albuquerque, New Mexico. My time started there, and I spent 10 months serving in Habitat for Humanity Restore. It was a great opportunity for me to serve in a different way, but I felt like I hadn't complete my service, and Hurricane Harvey hit during the time I was spending in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Service Adventure strived to help out the people in Texas, and we took time during kind of the spring break time to go down to Rockport, Texas, and help out with Hurricane Harvey. This is where I met a gentleman who many volunteers here probably know, Ronn. He was a big guy. Thank you. I miss him too. Ronn is a big guy, but a teddy bear. He's when he comes up and shakes your hand, he strikes fear in you, but then shows you how much love he has to give. This is what drove me to MDS. There are strong people here to help. We have a big personality more than just our appearances. And I found out that there's a great opportunity at Heston College, and I took that opportunity. What motivated me was, ever since I was a young boy, I was a native boy who was adopted to a Mennonite family at 11 years old. My family gave me a great opportunity to come out of a disastrous family lifestyle and to be reborn, to be given a great opportunity. And that's why I love Mennonite Disaster Service. It just connects with me, and I was raised in this culture. But one Bible verse that stuck with me was my first year. My first year, our president at Heston College gave us Isaiah 43:19. I am about to do a new thing. It springs forth. Do you not perceive it? Do you not perceive it? That is interesting to me because that goes quite along with, do you see Jesus? Where do you see Jesus? And that was one thing for me that I really remember. I was looking for Jesus throughout my times of service. It was great for me to look for those things. Let me finish the Bible verse. I am about to do a new thing. It springs forth. Do you not perceive it? I will make way in the wilderness and rivers in the desert. This really connected with me going to South Carolina. I had a great opportunity to learn alongside Cleo, as well Levi. We learned together, we failed together, we joked together, and some spiders were thrown at me along the way. I have a great fear of spiders, just so you know. It was not fun, and Cleo still gives me grief over it. So, the summer field experience was amazing. I loved my time down there. I had great opportunities to learn and fail, and I got to experience my elders' experiences. And one of the women that I worked with is actually sitting here, Tina, and Emily, yes, sorry. These are two ladies who I gave grief, but they also gave me grief right back. They showed me that they are holding the food, and if I want to eat tonight, I better be nice. So, my summer field experience taught me so much and has driven me closer to working in the construction area. But what I learned the most was We are the hands and feet of God. We are here doing his work on earth. It is a great blessing for us to do this. And that is one thing that meant the most to me. I was able to help out Denise McCrae, that you have been seeing great pictures of, this handsome guy. And throughout my time there, I got to experience great times and opportunities. This was so helpful for me, and I got to learn all the flavors of the Mennonite culture. There's the Amish, the older Mennonite, the conservative. Older Mennonite women, you really need to get an Olympic volleyball team going because you are very good. But it was very interesting to see these ladies play volleyball here and there, but also work in the kitchen, on the construction sites, and it was just amazing to see how many cultures are within the Mennonite culture. And it really empowers me as a Native American to see that our cultures align together. And we are driven towards the same common goal, to spread the stories that we have collected. And I would have never been able to do this without MDS. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing with us. Well, our time here is drawing to a close, but the stories go on that we continue to share, and we continue to open ourselves to new stories. And with that in mind, I want to ask Wayne Stuckey from Region 3, come forward and share with us about what's next here. Oh, I see somebody far off in the distance here.
Lightning, what's happened, baby? Come on, Lightning. You gotta get up. Come on, you old mag.
Got a problem?
Yeah, my horse is acting up again, kind of acting like a donkey.
Well, are you taking good care of her? She looks a little thin and abused compared to my fine thoroughbred.
I am a horsing man. I'm a cowboy. I know how to take care of my horse. I fed her at lunchtime, and I gave her all the rest of my beans. And she drank all the rest of my Dr. Pepper. When we got on the road, we went flying down the road like we were on gas-powered, you know?
Huh, must have run out of gas.
You got any beans?
Nope.
Well, I got a lot of friends with a lot of hot air, if you know what I mean.
Sure you do.
In fact, I got a lot of Amish friends, too. I bet they'd lend me a horse. with all my horsing skills and everything. You know, they always helping their neighbor in need. And they're always volunteering for the Mennonite Disaster Service.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is disaster.
This is disaster. Hey, Frank, can you help me out here? My horse ran out of gas.
Where are you headed? You seem to be a bit stressed out.
You would be too if your horse was laying there.
Yes.
Haven't you heard? The next Mennonite Disaster Service All-Unit Meeting is being held in Georgetown, Texas. Yeah, Georgetown, Texas. You know the temperature today is 70 degrees out there.
Where is Georgetown, Texas?
Well, let me show you.
So you guys know that I love tripping Texas. So let's trip to one of my favorite destinations, Georgetown. Just 30 miles north of Austin is where big ideas meet small town charm. Where rich culture runs from the past all the way into the present. The most beautiful town square in Texas is anything but square, with surprises on every corner. The square may only be outdone by the beauty of Georgetown's natural wonder. There's always something to explore here in the vast Texas Hill Country. Georgetown loves tradition, but that doesn't hold it back from embracing its future. Family road trippers, business conference goers, or hopeless romantics, there's a getaway here for everyone. And while any day in Georgetown can feel like a party, just wait till you see how we really put on a show. No matter the season. So what are you waiting on? Come see all the reasons I don't just trip here. I live here. So come on down and visit us. Stay as long as you want. We'll save a spot for you.
Well, Bubba, it sure looks like a pretty nice place to visit.
Hey, it is. And you all are invited down to Georgetown, Texas, February 5 and 6. In Georgetown, Texas, north of Austin. It's got a lot of places to eat in Texas, a lot of places to visit. So come on down and visit us at the 2021 AUM meeting. Stay tuned for more information.
Well, it is good to have something to look forward to, isn't it? So I can't wait to see more of Wayne's dramatic talents here on display. Well, it was a year ago, right about now, that we started planning this event, and a lot of people have been involved in the planning of it, most notably the Indiana Lower Michigan unit here. And so I just want to invite our planning committee and all the volunteers that have been contributing to our weekend here this weekend to come forward here. Just want to recognize them. So this is just part of the group that we've had. This is our steering committee. We've had a lot of other volunteers as well. So a lot of these folks that you recognize here from the Indiana unit, but I just want to note also Brandy Gingrich and Chris Miller and Joe Miller. They are from the congregation here. They have been here all week long, before we arrived and after we left here. And so just want to especially give you our appreciation for your efforts here in making us feel at home and accommodating us in all of our special needs. So let's just give a round of applause here to all of our volunteers on planning committee and so forth. Thank you so much. We're really grateful for everything you do. Thank you, Chris. Chris and Joe especially were responsible here for all of our meals, all of our snacks throughout the week here, and so we're just very grateful. Thank you. Okay. And I just especially want to signal out Raleigh here. He has been the one that has been organizing our committees and calling us together and just making sure that this whole event ran smoothly here. So Raleigh, we're really grateful. I'm really grateful for everything that you've done here.
You're certainly welcome.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you so much. There's one other person that I want to introduce who's been involved with our week here that you may or may not have seen. And that is Rebecca Sommers. Rebecca is married to Merle, members of College Mennonite Church here in Goshen. They became involved with Mennonite Disaster Service after Hurricane Charlie in Florida. Rebecca was instrumental in helping MDS begin with the production and the sharing of quilts and wall hangings here, for what we have used for many years in our home dedications. She has served on the board of delegates and has been on the lookout for Jesus showing up here among us this week. So we wanted to just take a few minutes here to just reflect on how Jesus has been present with us. So Rebecca, just tell us a little bit, where are some of the places that you have seen Jesus showing up here among us?
Well, and first of all, I have to say, Ron, we have been listening for 4 days. And we now have 8 minutes, or maybe only 7, to put that all out. Okay. I think there's various ways we've seen Jesus. And it starts out with the board. Jesus reigns over that board of delegates and the board of directors. This whole Mennonite disaster program does not just happen all by itself. There's so much, and I believe God shows up in those meetings. They hold discussions, make decisions with, I believe, great discussion in a Christ-like manner. I've not served on a board that has been just like that. Also, I've seen Jesus in all of this MDS in the fact that Jesus really provides resources. And we've heard that in the different resources that have joined in partnership with MDS. And we're grateful for that. I think we see Jesus right on the projects in the safety. And also with Kevin and the others who travel, the safety. It was reported this week that only 19 reported injuries in the year of 2019. 19 out of 5,000 plus volunteers. God's face is in that. So I think that God also sits among us, whether we're right here, whether we're on the job, whether we're in the Lititz office. He's right there. And we can take comfort in that. I think God also follows Kevin King. Kevin is everywhere, and he knows everyone. And I'm thinking that Jesus sort of put some of those people in the midst of all of that. My husband and I learned to know Kevin, and I'm sorry he's not sitting here. We learned to know him when he was part of a house church group with my son and his family. And they were out camping, or whatever. I don't know how kind of camping they were at. But they went on a hike, Kevin's family and Todd's family. And it had been raining. So Todd's going up this hill, and he kept going, but his foot didn't catch up with him. And it just tore it all up. And so Kevin, being the servant, had Todd get up on his back. Now, they had a mile to go. And carried him. Now, at one point, Todd said, "You better put me down because I'm going to throw up." And Kevin says, "Do whatever you need to do, but we're going to keep going." Anyway, that's the kind of Kevin that I have learned to know, and I believe Jesus walks with him. And also I see Jesus in how we as the MDS community care for each other. Mm-hmm. We've heard of several stories this week of really great losses among our MDS family. Mm-hmm. And we're right there to grieve and be part of whatever it is they're going through. Jesus sits with us. So, what'd you hear?
Well, I appreciate that. You mentioned the board here, and one of the images that was shared early on in this week that really sticks with me was the advice of one of our board members' fathers, that when we are given responsibility, we're given a call, we're given a task or work from God to do, that the proper way to go about that is to hold that responsibility with an open hand, that is a gift from God and not something to be grasped. And I've seen that over and over again in terms of the way that our board works and the way that our volunteers work in a servant manner here. That to me is a real sign of Jesus being among us. I think I've seen Jesus working among us and being present among us too, just in something you touched on, but just a number of ways in which mutual aid has been engaged in this past week. You talked about support for each other that have experienced disaster. That's happened in very personal ways, but there have also been proposals that have been shared and discussed this week about how do we make our resources more available to volunteers who couldn't otherwise get out to projects to be involved. And so that's a way that I see Jesus showing up. Yeah.
Well, I think also Jesus does show up on the project sites. And he provides volunteers, the persons that are needed when they're needed. Mm-hmm. And the volunteers show Jesus in the communities they're working with, just by what they do and what they say. Mm-hmm. That's Christ walking among us.
Amen. Amen. Well, thank you, Rebecca, for walking among us this week and being a part of this listening and this watching project, for being a watchman here on our behalf.
Thank you.
Okay. So just a few announcements here at the end of our afternoon. First of all, supper is planned and we are all invited. That will begin at 5:50, and then we have a concert that will happen here in the sanctuary beginning at 7 o'clock. And so we invite everyone who's able to stay and partake both of that physical nourishment and that spiritual nourishment as well. One announcement from our transportation committee. For all of our airport departures here on Sunday, tomorrow morning, you should have received a text message confirming your hotel departure time. If you have not received a text or have not confirmed that with Manass Hostetler, please confirm your departure time at the information desk here after we leave this room. So if you've not heard from them about your departure time, please confirm that you're on their list here after this. Also, out at the registration table, there will be a box. If you would like to keep your lanyard, you're welcome to do that. If you don't have need for that, you can return those and put those in the box on the registration table. So finally, one of the other stories of Jesus being among us that is going to stick with me this week was a story that Bill Mass shared here about working in Oklahoma and working with a woman whose home had been flooded in previous years, and Mennonite Disaster Service had come and helped repair her home, and her home being flooded again this past year. And when Mennonite Disaster Service workers showed up at her home to help make repairs for the second time, her response was, "I'm so glad that Mennonite Disaster Service has shown up here. Now I can put away my gun." And the message being that despair is as deadly as any wind or rain. And that's the message of our passage here, that when the disciples were despairing, when their past and their future all seemed in doubt because of Jesus' death and resurrection, Jesus came and stood among them and showed them his wounds and said, "Peace be with you." The song that I have continued to be thinking about this weekend has been, "Freely, freely you have received. Freely, freely give. Go in my name, and because you believe, others will know that I live." I think of the message from Texas here, from the county official who said that MDS has made a believer out of me. That's Jesus showing up and offering life. So as we end this all-unit meeting, I say along with Jesus, peace be with you. Receive the Holy Spirit, and as the Father has sent me, so you are sent. Now go and get out the door.